You know, photography's a funny thing. A lot of people out there think they would love to start it, but for some reason never do. And I think that's down to a fear factor of, is it difficult, is it expensive, and is it worthwhile? Well, I hope to answer that in this video, and I'm going to give you loads of different reasons of why you should consider taking up photography, and hopefully along the way, tell you about some pitfalls. Watch through the video. I'm going to give you some great advice on how to get started, how to avoid wasting money, but most importantly, we're going to talk about why photography is just exceptionally fun. You're going to get to see amazing places that you might have never visited before, and I'll show you some photographs and some videos throughout to show you where I've been and where you could be going next. I started my journey in photography about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was after I'd had a horrendous accident at the age of 47 when I decided that that was the time I should take up skateboarding again, because I'd lost all my coordination, I had zero flexibility, and nothing could go wrong. You'll see on the screen just now how wrong I was in that assumption. The long and short of it was that after a 6.5 hour operation, they had to reconstruct my elbow, scar there, metal inside, and it had quite a significant impact on my life from there going forward. Prior to that, I used to be in a band. I've mentioned this before, I'm not going to bore you with it. However, for my entire life I learned to play guitar and got to a level where I was quite happy with it. But after my accident, I lost the dexterity in my fingers and I couldn't play it as well as I used to. So I started to look for another outlet where I could express myself from an artistic point of view, and photography fit the mould perfectly. I started off by researching what camera I should get that would be a good beginner camera, would make it easy to learn. I got some advice from, I can't say that. Why can't I say that? We've gone through it. I got some advice from friends that had already taken up photography, and the camera that I finally settled on was the Canon M50. But what I did find was it was tiny in the hands, it was more a vlogging camera, and it really wasn't what I was looking for. So I did some more research, I scanned YouTube on what the best beginner camera was, and I ignored all of that advice and I plumped for a flagship Canon R5. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the Canon R5, the camera that I use, I'll put the link up here somewhere to the video I did last week on it. So with high hopes, I packed my camera bag, I loaded up the car, and I headed off to my most favourite place in the world, Glencoe. What a place to start. You see, at the very heart of it, photography is a marriage of art and science. And to me, the most important part is the art. You should look upon your camera as a tool to help you to realise your art. You can spend thousands on a camera these days, tens of thousands on a camera. Once you spend that kind of money above £1,000 or £2,000, the returns you get start to diminish. So it's important you get a camera that you like, that you trust, and you'll learn how to use it. Because once you've learned how to use it, you should be able to forget about it, and then you concentrate on the most important part, and that's what's in front of you. So now that you've chosen your camera, the next decision that you want to make, but don't panic, you're not going to get locked into it, is what do you want to take photographs of? Do you want to take photographs of landscapes, animals, street photography, buildings, people? If you have an idea at the start, it certainly helps, because what you will need to do is buy some lenses. So if you're going to take photographs of wildlife, then you might need something like this. This is a Canon 100-500 lens. It's a super telephoto zoom, and it is incredible for getting you closer to those animals. And again, if you couple it with the Canon R5, which is a 46 megapixel sensor, you can crop in even further in your image to make it fill the frame. But this is not particularly good if you want to shoot mountains, and for that you might need one of these. This is the Canon L series 15-35. It's an f.28 lens, but that's not overly important at the moment, but it means I can shoot in slightly darker conditions. But because it's such a wide-angled lens, I can capture more of the scene. So once you decide what you might want to take photographs of, you then need to decide on what lens. And again, there's no better place than YouTube to help you decide. The next thing in the checklist that you should do is do some location scouting. And that's to pick somewhere nice to go and take photographs. Yeah, it's good to start in your living room and take photographs of things on tables, but that becomes very boring very quickly. So get some apps. I use PhotoPills, use Google Maps, Street View, and try and find somewhere that you want to go to experiment with your new toy. As a landscape photographer, places like Glencoe, the Isle of Skye, the Isle of Mull are all places that I love to visit on a regular basis because depending on the weather, it's a different scene every time. So get a location in your mind, plan your journey, pack your bags, get some sandwiches and hit the road. Now when you arrive at your destination, it's very easy to get overwhelmed by all the things that you need to remember. You've probably watched the entirety of YouTube, you've got lots of knowledge bouncing about in your head, but you've got no practical application of it yet. So just slow down. You don't have to take the camera straight out the bag and start to take photographs. What is key is to have a look about, find some images that you might want to take, and then spend some time on what I think is the most important part of photography, and that's composition. And again, I've got a full video on composition and I'll link that up here. For me, composition is the most important part of photography. Spending a little bit of time choosing what your image is going to look like in the end, because there's nothing worse than just picking up your camera, pointing it and pressing it, getting home and realising it's not a great shot. So a bit of thought going in at this stage really does help. Now here comes one of the most important bits of advice when it comes to your gear. After you've been in that day out, you've came home and you've started to edit your photographs, you start to watch a little bit more about YouTube, what you start to find is that you want to buy more lenses. You want to go from landscape to street photography. You want to try and do architecture. You want to try everything, which is understandable because it's very addictive. But what I'd recommend is stick with what you've got for a decent amount of time so you can learn all about your camera, how to get used to the lenses, how to focus, how to compose your images, and then how to edit them when you get home. Once you've got all of those skills under your belt, then it might be time to think, I don't want to do this, I want to do that, I need a new lens. Because what you have to be very aware of is a thing called gear acquisition syndrome. And again, in the very early days when you start out, you're going to want to buy everything and you'll become very poor very quickly. And I can attest to that. One further bit of advice in this is that when you buy your first lens, it's advisable to buy something like maybe a 24 to a 70, which means it can zoom and it can shoot from 24mm all the way through to 70. So it gives you flexibility in whether you want to get a little bit closer to the subject or whether you want to take a wider shot. So again, it saves you having to buy 2 or 3 different lenses, and you can then find out where you take most of your shots. Do you shoot most of them at the 70mm end, or do you shoot most of them at the 24mm end? Because that'll give you an idea of what your next lens should be. So you've been on a magnificent day out, you've got to use your camera, you've taken some great photographs of some great locations. What do you do next? Well, this is when you take it home and you start to edit it. So you've got a choice of 2 things when you take your photographs. You can shoot in what's called RAW, or you can shoot in JPEG. Now if you shoot in JPEG, it comes out the camera full of colour and it's ready to go. You could post it on your social media straight away. But if you shoot in RAW, it comes out and it looks grey, it looks washed out, and the main reason for that is it gives you the maximum amount of dynamic range, so therefore you get more detail in the shadows and you've got more details in the highlight parts of your images. And when you take that file into your editing software, you can do so much more with it. And believe me, editing your photographs like that is the difference between those photographs you see on Instagram, which knock you on your ass, compared to those that you think they took that with a mobile phone. Now a quick caveat. Not all days are going to be great. There are plenty of days when I go out to take photographs and the weather's not great, or I think it's going to be great and it never turns out the way it is. That's just the life of being a landscape photographer. It's different if you're doing portrait photography because you control the lighting, you control the model, and it's easier to get consistent results. But if you do what I do, you're at the beck and call of the weather, and that never plays ball. Very occasionally, everything will come together and you'll get that portfolio shot with a dramatic sunset or the massive waves. But be prepared, there'll be days where you go out, you come home and look at your photographs and you think, I've not got anything. And that is why it's so important to enjoy the day. If you enjoy the process rather than the result, you'll get far more out of your photography. So make sure that you focus on enjoying yourself and not just the end result. Another understated benefit of taking up photography is you will now join the community of photographers, and they are a very, very supportive bunch. There are a load of photographers who are further on in their careers than you are, but are still willing to help the beginner come along their journey. So please join some groups on Facebook, Instagram. I'm a member of the photography community, The Darkroom, which is hosted by that Icelandic guy. And if you've not seen any of his work, follow him on YouTube, look him up on Instagram. It's nothing short of breathtaking. And he's there to help support us through our journey to become better photographers. And we share our work, we share our ideas, and you learn so much more, so much faster. And that is absolutely invaluable. So that's about it. We've covered all the basics. If there's any questions you have, please drop them in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed the video, consider subscribing and please give me the wee thumbs up. It definitely helps get this video out to more people. One last thing I want to say before I go is, you might remember earlier that I said it's important to choose somewhere to go that's nice to take good photographs. And one of the places I like to go to is the Isle of Skye. It's absolutely jaw-droppingly beautiful, and if you spend a couple of days up there, you're guaranteed to come home with a plethora of great photographs. So if you'd like to see more about it, watch this video when I spent 48 hours on Skye. I've got drone footage, photographs, and it was one of the most memorable journeys of my life. So please give that a watch.